My mom is just, she's very, how do you say this? Like her heart is very big, right? So even if whatever she wants me to do, at the end of the day, if she push and she sees that, okay, there's no way and I'm hurting her, she can see that she's hurting me. She stops and we work through it. At a point, she really pushed me to not, I wasn't speaking to her for 2 years, which I mean, it was very heartbreaking. I had to assert those boundaries. And I mean, after asserting that boundary, it's been like fruitful ever since. So there's actual like effective communication. It's just a very healthy relationship with her.
All righty. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mark.
Good to have you here. I'm very excited to talk to you. You
Yeah.
obviously have a very interesting and unique upbringing, having grown up in Ghana and then coming to the US. Tell me a little bit about how this shift created a different identity for you as a creative or an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I will touch it in the base of it gives me a great perspective, right? For instance, bringing my identity from Ghana and my experience here in America, just bringing those two together gives me a very unique perspective when just creating in general, right? And it's contributed in my, not necessarily like my creative side, but also just like entrepreneurship side, right? Because obviously if you're like living back home, most people that live back home are entrepreneurs, right? Either you have 2 jobs or 3 jobs. In that sense, I saw that growing up. And when I came here to the US, obviously it's like a completely different world that I'm seeing, right? So that also takes creativity, right? To be able to just take a step back and just acknowledge the fact that, okay, this is a different world that I've been put in. The best way, obviously with my younger brain, the best way I knew to tackle it was just study it and just after using that study as wisdom to help me navigate whatever path I'm wanting to choose or go. Yeah.
Making a transition like that, as someone who also did it at a fairly young age, it's hard. What was it like for you to have to travel across the world and start your life all over again?
Oh man, that's gonna be like a really long story. Not necessarily, right? It was just like a thing of both my parents weren't living back home at the time, right? So my dad basically left when I was born because it was just like, you understand if you're an immigrant, you just move outside of the country for better opportunities and stuff. And it was understandable. And then my mom also left when I was like 5 years old because the visa and everything were ready. And then obviously they then prepared for us to come after that. But in that sense of me just growing up back home, is you gain a lot of wisdom because it's just like a family oriented thing. Like your neighbors are your family, that stranger on the street is your family. So your mentality it strengthens, right? So being put in this whole coming to America, it was just like I used that wisdom to help me navigate, right? So as much as I was like 14, 16, I had a completely different outlook of life. So it helped me like when I was in middle school, I was just like, okay, you need to step back. Like just me having that conversation in my head, right? Because it's just something like you've seen adults do and it depends on the person you are. And I'm glad that I had taken that knowledge to help me navigate. It wasn't easy, right? Because first of all, there was like I had an accent and kids would just say, oh, I don't understand you, blah, blah. It hurt, but what can I do, right? I just had to just keep trying, keep going. There's nothing else you can do besides just keep doing it and just keep doing and going no matter what. That's what really helped me. I guess my resilience helped me now.
Was the difficulty in being able to get along with local kids here, would you say that was the hardest part, or was there something else?
I think it was I wouldn't necessarily say it was hard. It was just like a challenge, right? The way I would see it, it was just a challenge because in the end, once I overcome that, I can talk to the next kid. I can do this, I can do that. The hardest part would be understanding the system. American system would be I think the most difficult part that I've had. And it changes all the time. So that was the hardest part I had to understand because you're in the school, it's just, you can talk back to your teacher. To me, it's just, what do you do? And that's what I mean is challenging. So it challenges you to feel like, oh, I can do it. Let me try it. But your morals holds you back.
Yeah. A lot of immigrant kids coming over from a different country, it's such an adjustment. because all of a sudden you are thrown into a culture where even your family is now sticking out like a sore thumb because even they don't get along. And unlike adults who have already had their formative years and they've already set in their ways, as kids, you still have to be able to adjust. And that sometimes takes a toll on mental health. So tell me a little about that journey if you experience any of that.
The thing is, I'm not sure what your experience was, right? Because obviously with your parents being set in their ways and restricting you from experiencing this new world that they brought you in, it's a bit frustrating for me that they're actually not trying to understand their environment. And I'm not sure how this worked for you, but at a point you would have to translate things for your parents. And in that sense, at a point, I had like roughly two identities, right? So you'd be someone else at home because you're like, okay, they're not going to accept this version of me at home. I have to keep being the person that they seem to be like a good way to live, which not that I was living a bad way. It's just something that's normalized in America to them is just, well, what are you doing? Having to go to college as well is just, okay, this is really who I am in college. But when I come back home, I have to put on this other identity. So in the sense, it causes some kind of identity shift. But once I became aware of it, I think that was my first step to correcting it. Yeah.
Which identity did you see yourself falling into more often than the other?
No, mostly the one that because it's like there's an emotional connection there with my parents. So in a sense, I was more so like playing the role they wanted me to play, right? The hijabi thing, something in my soul was just not pushing me to like fully do it because it felt forced. So it's just like dressing modestly. Not sure what's happening here. Is my network a bit fidgety?
It is, yeah. So maybe start again from the job thing.
Okay. Let me know when it's not fidgeting. Oh, I think we're good now.
Yeah, I think you're good. You can, yeah.
Okay. It's just being back home. It's just obviously we're Muslim, right? But in a sense, there's like a way of living in my parents' home. So just combine the being Muslim and the culture as well. It's just, I don't know. I tried my best, right? I was trying because also of the emotional connection. It was just a way of, okay, I need to make sure they're okay. I need to live this life they want me to live. And at a point, it was just like I would feel bad when I was in college because I'm like, okay, am I doing something wrong here? And only because I've been conditioned to live a certain way, you start to feel bad. And that really did take a toll on my mental health. And one day I was just like, just done. I just started like just living my life and whatever they have to say, they can say.
How did that go with them?
It doesn't go well, but my thing is, because I understand my parents, it was just like, you can't just fully just push because the outcome is going to be so intense. And I prioritize my mental health a lot. So it's just, I didn't want to like just attack it fully. I just wanted to give them tiny doses. So it's first I started with dyeing my hair, which is a little dose. They said something, it wasn't too much. My hair grew back. They understood. I'm not like doing it to go crazy or something. My nose piercing, my mom didn't like it, but I was just like, it is what it is. I'm not doing anything bad. But in a sense, because I understand them, I just give them a little dose when I'm like growing into a new version of myself. I just give them a little, they wouldn't even see it coming really, right? And I learned through like my eldest siblings because they did it they delivered it wrong. So I was just like, okay, like this is gonna affect me. So I shouldn't do that the way they did it. Yeah. So in a sense, I just work around their emotions, or in a sense, yeah.
In a way, you had it harder than I did because I came over to the US when I was 18, but I was alone. So I didn't have to live the duality that you had to live.
Parents, your family, or are they back home?
Correct. They're still there. Yeah. Yeah. So they come visit. I came in 2005. I visited them in 2006. And the next time I saw them was 2019. So while I didn't have the benefit of having parents to take care of me, I also didn't have to live the duality that you had to live outside the house a certain way and then inside the house a certain way. So it's very interesting to be able to talk to somebody who's have to live that. This incremental change that you had to bring onto yourself to slowly expose your parents to who you truly want to be. Do you think they just got used to it and they accepted it? Or is this just something that you think that still separates between you and them?
I think in a sense, I guess I'm going to individualize my parents. So with my dad, it's just he wants us to like, I guess his idea of being successful would be like your traditional corporate job, whether it's like healthcare, lawyer, engineer, etc. And he has like an image of what you should look like. So in a sense, with that relationship with him, it's still love at the end of the day, but it's just there's assertion and there's distance that was created, right? Whereas as far as like my mom is just, she's very, how do you say this? Like her heart is very big, right? So even if whatever she wants me to do, at the end of the day, if she push and she sees that, okay, there's no way and I'm hurting her, she can see that she's hurting me, she stops and we work through it. So that's why I individualize, because I mean, she's tried. And at a point, she really pushed me to not, I wasn't speaking to her for 2 years, which I mean, it was very heartbreaking. I had to assert those boundaries. And I mean, after asserting that boundary, it's been like fruitful ever since. So there's actual like effective communication. It's just a very healthy relationship with her.
What caused the reconciliation?
Like just knowing how she is, I knew at a point that she's really understood what she's done. So I was just like, let me just give her a call. So I called her randomly. I think it was Mother's Day. I called her Mother's Day, and her excitement was just beyond this world, and I was happy as well. And we touched on it because I hate to like brush things under the rug. So I was like, you know what? I just couldn't keep in touch with. And she explained, yeah, she gets it, but it was a lot of sleepless nights. I knew it was very harsh, but I just was left with no other choice, right? Because I wasn't being heard. And I guess she just saw it as though she has to dictate my life. So in that sense, it was just like, there is no way. There is no conversation needed right now. I'm done until you understand. But it was very nice that when I called her back, she was very excited, and I'm glad like we got to heal through this.
Yeah, it seems two different relationships, right? One with your father, one with your mother, two different people, completely makes sense. What was it like when you graduated high school, when it comes to pursuing a career opportunity, given how you described your dad's aspirations for you? What was that like?
Okay, so when I graduated high school, I actually wanted to be a professional soccer player. That's all I want. And he knew that. My parents knew that. I played soccer my whole life. They knew that's the path I wanted to go. But it was just like, they couldn't see my vision. So they would discourage it. Even in high school, it was just like, you need to stop playing it. You need to go to college. But luckily, I got a scholarship and I went to college. I played for 4 years. Even then, it was just like, don't focus on soccer. Just go get your nursing degree, get into healthcare, blah, blah, blah. And at a point, I just gave up because I had this professional tryout. I want to go try out for a professional team. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I didn't make the team, right? So I just, because also, if they were encouraging me, I could have pushed and put, but I was just like, you know what? They don't even want me to do this. It doesn't seem like I'm really good at this. I'm going to get something out of this. So I'm just going to stop. So I stopped, I graduated, and I got a regular job. And when I got the regular job, it still was so unfulfilling, but they were still dictating, go to school, be a nurse, be this, be that. So I got back to school. So that way I just don't want to hear it. But through just being in school, I stopped hearing it because their mind is a bit calm that, okay, she's in school, she's doing something. And the whole healthcare thing, I tried it. I did internship. It was just sleepless nights. And it was just so overwhelming. Like I just couldn't do it. So at a point I went to the student affairs office at the school or whatever. And I had the conversation. I was like, hey, I did minor in computer science in college. So I want to continue to minor in that because I was majoring for my master's, I was majoring in healthcare administration. So I minored in computer science, and through computer science, I met some colleagues that actually got me into cybersecurity. And clearly that's what I do now. After high school, I wasn't too happy with my life. Yeah.
How did that sit with your family, especially your dad, getting into cybersecurity when he wanted you to be in healthcare?
It was very shocking to them, but I think they've understood me to a point where they know that Hawa's always going to do what's in her heart. As much as we want her to do it, when she does it, we just know something was there. I think they have that mindset, even though they would never communicate it. They have the mindset that I'm able to do that because I've done it multiple. So whenever I graduated, obviously I'm holding my diploma, and my parents are asking me, so what did you finish with? I was like, oh, I majored in healthcare administration, but I minored in computer science. But don't worry, I have a job. And I knew that's all they wanted to hear. It's like, okay, what's your job? So I was working at a law firm at the time. So in that sense, I was like, don't worry, I have a job, so it's okay. That's all they wanted. The reaction, it wasn't an exciting reaction. It was just dead silent because they don't understand. Their whole dream is basically crushed. because I'm not doing what they thought I was doing, right? Because in the whole point, I was like, okay, I'm still in healthcare. They would see me go to internship and stuff, but it just didn't sit well with me. I love computers. I love creating. I love strategizing. And the best place to do it is my home. That's the perfect path.
So you graduate high school, you wanted to be a professional soccer player, you go to college, you get a degree in healthcare, you minor in computer science, you graduate, you get a job in a law firm, but there is still a creative energy that is within you. There is still an entrepreneurial streak within you. And you
Yeah.
wrote your debut book, Petals of My Heart. And the book touches on a lot of the sentiments that you have been talking about. It talks about love and loss and resilience. So tell us about that aspect of your personal journey that kind of inspired to write this book.
Oh man, Petals of My Heart. Really, the title just says it all. It's just like my heart in a book, right? So originally when I started writing Petals of My Heart, like I've been in the mental health space for a long time. I wanted to deliver to my audience to fully be able to understand my life and my perspective from, and there's only, the way you can really deliver is limited because it's on paper, it's in writing. Whereas if we're talking on podcasts, like they're getting a sense of who I am. But in writing that, I wanted to touch it from like the floor to like the ceiling. If you can, the first chapter, which is Love's Intro, really I touched on, well, Love's Intro, right? My introduction to love and emotions, which is from obviously my father's love and my mom's love. So it starts with silent father, birth and mother. And that silent father, what silent father entails, the translation for that is emotionally absent. And birth and mother is just like confusion because you need conversation in a relationship. But obviously silent father, he's not like the one to give you that. It's limited conversation and it's just like really emotionally absent. Like they actually are struggling and I understand that, but she has zero comprehension of what a silent father is, or I guess in my translation, right? So in a sense, I started from like the beginning of like my introduction to love. So in a sense, when you're in that environment, you're normalizing everything that's going on, right? So you take that into your relationship, whether it's your first love or your adult relationship, friendships. But yeah, and then after that chapter, I then went to maternal shadows. Maternal shadows also touches my interaction with motherly figures. So it's just like the aunties, right? My experiences with the aunties, older cousins, the female older cousins, and my mom, right? So there's just a consistency of just emotional disconnect and just a lot of, I don't want to say toxicity, but in a sense it's a bit toxic because the things that they've normalized and they've accepted in like relationships, I saw it through their eyes and I would normalize it. So I was really like in that book, I was dissecting like all parts and details of my life, really. And I really hope I delivered it in a way where the audience can receive it. And the last chapter, I just finish it with notes to self, right? So really so think of the whole book as in reflecting, healing, acknowledging things. In the end, notes to self is okay, this is what we learned. This is the wisdom we've learned. We like this, we love. Whatever has shaped our idea of not liking love, we need to remove that, heal from that, and just focus on love because we enjoy love. So in that sense, that's what I wanted to deliver to my audience or the readers. Yeah.
So interesting. This is another time when you've talked about mental health. And the
Yeah.
recurring theme seems to be mental health and also vulnerability. So, what is it about these two things that you think is critical for someone to be able to foster their own personal growth, just through your experience?
Wow, okay. I feel like if I had that guidance to protect and fruition is the word fruition, have a full mental health in my environment, it would have been like, it would have gotten me way further in life, or I wouldn't have encountered situations that I accepted and normalized, which was detrimental to my mental health. So that's where the passion comes from. I, like my younger self, yearned for that. And the goal is to actually provide it for anyone in need. And I've been doing that for a long time with my friends. And I thought, oh, I can like do this within my community or push it out. So that's what really brought about. It's always been a thing because when I think about it, I always take that mental break when interacting with my parents. I just didn't understand the terms of what I was doing, but I was actually doing it because I was like, okay, something is wrong here. But yeah, that's really what drives the passion of mental health vulnerability because, like I said, emotionally absent. They don't communicate their feelings. When in fact, I like to pour mine out, right? Obviously, not to overwhelm you. So, in a sense, like just having a safe space was really my wish. Yeah.
Yearning to be heard, yearning to be understood. I think that's just one of the basic human desires. And when that does not get filled, that has to come out in certain way. So for some, it comes out through a book, for you through poetry, some through work. So you also took that and took it to a whole another level, because it wasn't just about you being frustrated with your own feelings and finding an outlet. You wanted to create something even for others. And you started keepcalm.org, which is a nonprofit, which is also about mental health advocacy. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so keepcalm.org, I did tell you I have a partner. His name is Hawa, Carlos. Originally, we're both passionate. We're very passionate about mental health. While we were working our projects, we were like, hey, let's start a mental health foundation. I actually pitched it to him. And really just being in the creative space, I wouldn't say it's not prioritized as much, but I think it could use more priority. So that's what really brought about, because we're both creatives, right? That's what brought about Keep Calm Down, right? So we provide mental health resources to our audience, or really we tend to find whoever needs help through third party, right? And yeah, and we also provide workshops. Yeah.
I like it. The question still remains though, right? You are a cybersecurity analyst. You work in a high pressure environment. You are co-running keepcalm.org. You're writing a book. You're managing your own family and your expectations with it. How are you in today's fast-paced world as an entrepreneur, as a creative, keeping track of your own mental health?
Oh man. Okay, so like I said, you always need that mental break. That's how I prioritize it. But first, in order for me to even begin doing that, I had to like first acknowledge it and be self-aware about, okay, I'm overwhelming myself. Because as a creative, when I start a project, I'm so happy, so excited. I want to finish it today. So at a point, it was just like I will overwhelm myself and it will set me back because I'm mentally drained. And that's not proactive. It is not productive for business or just in life in general. So I was just like, it's very essential for me to, it seems like an asset at this point. It's like a business asset, right? I need these mental breaks. It's like working at any company as an employee. They give you like 15-minute breaks, 30-minute breaks, right? But when you work for yourself, you're like, oh, I don't need a break. I work for myself. But no, it's very essential. You need to take that break. I don't want to force you to, but just take a break when needed and just recoup. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just there. As long as you organize things, like you can always come back to it. So just take that mental break. That's what I do, of course. And also surrounding myself with mentally healthy people. So that's also another thing that I realized is when I'm keeping people with negative energy around me, it tends to affect me mentally and it affects my work, my business, etc. So that as well, like I'm very big on keeping like mentally healthy people and people with great energy around me.
This is really good because I have so many questions on that. If I am listening to this is an entrepreneurial podcast and everybody's trying to find ways to find peace and happiness and take care of their mental health. You talk about taking a mental break. What does that entail? Does it just entail like walking away from your desk, or is there other steps that you think work out better?
So I think you need to, first of all, in order for you to even be successful in finding the perfect way for you to take a mental break, you need to understand yourself, what you enjoy doing, and what helps you clear your mind, right? For me, is I'm on my desk at a point and it's just, you're either like, you have a writer's block. I usually get a writer's block, or I get an overwhelming feeling in my body that needs to be acknowledged. So I started doing that. Before I would ignore it. It's whatever, just get the work done, blah, blah, blah. I didn't understand how much it was affecting me, right? In a sense, when I get that, okay, I'm really just overdoing it and I'm like mentally, I'm blocked from being creative. I then take a step back, get some water. My apartment has a rooftop, so I either just go sit there. If the sun is setting, it's very nice. Or there's an ice cream shop right next to me and they have this delicious Vietnamese coffee custard. I get it in a waffle cone, man. It really slaps. Yeah. So just do things that make you feel good. Always like doing things that make you feel good. That's how you take a mental break.
I really find this so interesting, right? Because there is, again, this recurring theme of duality, the dualness life in between living life a certain way at home and then having to live a different way outside of home. In the same way, you're living the life of an analytical engineer in the world of cybersecurity, but then you're also living the life of a creative and a poet. So what's the trick here? What's the tactic here? What's the secret here? Is it just the mental break, or are there other things that you do to be able to use the left brain, right brain almost interchangeably throughout the day?
I think having really good people around me, really, because in a sense, you don't just need that mental break, you need encouragement and shared ideas. Just whether it's like a free talk where it's like, how's your day? How are you doing? Obviously, I have people into a different industry, right? Whether it's the creative scene or in cybersecurity, right? Sometimes you just need to talk to the people that are within your field. That's if you're like mentally not okay. And you will know within yourself what direction you have to take or you need to take, right? So just having really good people around you is it's also like assets to your business. Like cybersecurity isn't like your protected company assets.
The other thing that I want to talk about is you said how you are always trying to keep positive and mentally healthy people around you, because obviously they feed us. And the type of energy that we have around us dictates what kind of day we end up having. But sometimes that's not always possible because we can't sometimes choose who we sit next to at work, right? Or who we are in a relationship with sometimes, especially with siblings or something like that. Are there any other coping mechanisms that you have that you could share with the audience that has helped you with that?
Okay, so obviously like I said, I do play soccer. So running, I spend a lot of time with myself. I wrote a book, so I read, right? But in a sense, reading it also helps with my mental health because it keeps my attention span longer, if that makes sense. The scrolling thing is next. But when you're reading, it keeps you focused and you're within yourself. I also do meditate, right? Prayer for me is meditation, right? So I have to pray. For me, it's like a must. I have to pray. And I'm Muslim, so our prayer is 5 times a day, right? I find that when I miss it at times, obviously you're not perfect at it, right? But when you miss it, at times I just get that feeling of sadness, but you just pick it back up, right? And also not being hard on myself because for me, like being hard on yourself, it's not effective. Don't beat yourself up. Don't have positive conversations with yourself. As much as other people can feed you positively, you also need to bring something to the table, right? You need to feed yourself so you can be around those positive people. So I work out, I pray, and I create. Yeah.
Would you say that's the secret that you want to share with the audience for those who are struggling to find a balance between a passion project and maintaining your job?
Ooh, I guess everyone has their path, but this path actually works for me, right? So I would say yes, right? Obviously, it would be a one-on-one talk to dissect how it really like the path to it, right? But I would say yes for me.
Obviously, so many lives, right? The life of a sports person, soccer player. You were a model before all of that. Tell us about that world.
Oh man, modeling is a passion, right? Modeling is a passion for me. I don't think I will ever stop modeling even in my old age. I don't think I can because it's like me expressing myself, right? And there are many industries in modeling. Like you can do like commercial, you can do fashion, there's runway as well, right? But overall, I just really love the idea of mod. Like you're literally creating something. You can do editorial, I just love bringing things to life, really. So I guess that's what really pushes me to be in the modeling industry, right? So imagine a photographer has an idea, and for me, my biggest reward is contributing to bringing that image to life, right? And it's just wow.
Wow, I love it. But again, soccer player, model, nonprofit work, mental health advocate, cybersecurity analyst, a devout Muslim, a good kid, living all these lives. How do you stay grounded with the roots in their community? How do you stay grounded and be part of all of this? Because sometimes when we grow out of phases and we are no longer that version, but you are seemingly have your feet in all these things. How do you do that?
Oh man, so I think this was instilled in me since a very young age, right? So I didn't grow up around much. Like I told you, my dad had to leave the country when I was like born, maybe a month or something. I'm not fully sure about the story, but my mom left when I was 5 years old. I was around my grandmother, and older people have wisdom. So in a sense, she was instilling that wisdom in me, and she's a very good woman as well. So it's just humanity was very important in that environment before. So I came to America when I was 12 years old. So in that sense, getting that foundation within me before I started doing things for myself, being successful, is just like a constant reminder of, okay, this is who you are to the core. You're like, you like doing good for people. You care about yourself as well. You enjoy creating, being strategic, problem solving, the whole cybersecurity thing. I love computers. I love watching hacking stuff. So I will always lead with what do I enjoy? What do I like? Because if I'm doing something for the money, for the this, for the that, these are all materialistic things. For me, I find they never give me joy. They just add to my happiness that I've already created. So in a sense, I guess the foundation I grew up in is what really keeps me to this stagnant role.
The foundation you grew up in essentially refers to the values. It is the values that are keeping you grounded and being able to allow you to live a life of your own independence, of things that you want to do, but also staying grounded with your family and being part of that unit.
Yeah.
If there was one value that defined Hawa, what would that be?
Oh, morality.
What does that mean to you?
Oh man, I look for morality in any relationship, whether it's business, whether you're a young child, whether you're like a vendor in the street. I look for morality. If I've bought from you a couple of times and you're just not a good person or you don't practice goodness, I'm never coming back here again because I'm feeding it. I'm contributing to this. It's something I caught, right? Not everyone really catches it. But for me, that's one thing I live by, the morality of we all have good in us. It's just about practicing it, right? We have good, we have bad. Sometimes I feel the instinct to do bad things, but it's just, but that's not who I am. As much as you can be pushed to do it, you're like, oh, that's not who I am. And that's why I think when people say, oh, I'm a good person, I'm like, bro, like a good person practices it. This is like everyday training for them. You go to your track runner, right? You practice all the time. You don't come here and say, oh, but yeah, I'm a good person, whatever. No, bro. A good person, you can see it, right? You practice good sometimes, but it takes lots and every day. And it's hard. I understand it's hard. And that's where you're tested, if that makes sense. It's just like, that's where your character is really tested in the moments when you don't want to do good, but you do it anyways. So morality.
Where does forgiveness fall into all of this? Because we have all made mistakes. And as much as we want to be moral and do the right things, we mess up. I do all the time. What is your take on how to approach forgiveness and how to teach others to forgive each other?
Oh man, forgiveness, I think it's just a very tough thing depending on where you are mentally. Because as much as we forgive other people, we also need to forgive ourselves for things that we've done, right? We're not perfect. We're going to do things that we're not even aware of, right? Like I said, yes, practice goodness, but at times you're oblivious to what your reactions are. That comes from not being able to regulate your emotions, etc. But once you've caught it, actually start practicing and putting in that work of doing goodness but as far as like forgiveness, I think it's very important, but it's not just for, let's say I'm forgiving you. It's not specifically for you, it's me, because I need to like just get it out of my heart, let it go, because it's not doing anything for me, right? As bad as it is, you need to take that first step. Just forgive the person. They've done it. You don't even need to go tell them you've forgiven them. Just do it from your heart, heal from it, and move on. If you don't want to talk to the person, that's fine. If you want to talk to them, you can talk to them, your choice. But also we need to practice forgiving ourselves, right? It took me a long time to do it because you need to understand what forgiveness is. And not too many people are taught what forgiveness is, right? And forgiveness is just like letting go. Just get it out of your body, out of your system. They hurt you. And the only thing you can do right now is to work on yourself and just focus on yourself, because I don't even think they're worried. And my mom says this, right? She says, someone can do something bad to you and they don't want to know. They're going to stop by the ice cream shop, get ice cream, go home. And you're there struggling and thinking. And that sits with me. It's just don't worry. They don't even know. They're on their way buying ice cream. They're crying. Yeah.
What is one thing that you had trouble forgiving yourself for? And how did you end up doing it finally?
I think I was having a hard time forgiving myself for being so hard on myself. Like I was so hard on myself because like I told you, the whole thing of, oh, you need to go to school, you need to get this, you need to get that, you need to do this. I took that within me. And that was where the identity shift like came in, because I was like, okay, they're telling me I need to do this. This is who I am. And I believe this was constructed because obviously I grew up in, I met my parents when I was 12 years old. They were creating that mind. I didn't have a mind of my own, so it was already being created. So at a point when I felt all of those things with the identity shift, it was bound to happen because I didn't have a sense of self. I was being like, the dictation was just there, right? In that sense, just taking it easy on myself, really, I need to take it easy on myself. That's one thing I've had a hard time. I did have a hard time, but when I started to understand me stress, because when I'm giving myself a hard time, it's just a lot of stress and worry, and it takes away from my productivity. I spent, I think, months just focusing on it. So when I catch it, it's just okay, like we need to take a break, we need to walk. Because why am I telling myself, oh, I deserve this, I did this? It's not good. Like it just causes you so much stress and you can't even work. Yeah.
You know how I have an opportunity to talk to so many people in a daytime, in the day, and throughout the week and throughout a month, and different people I speak to instill different type of values and thoughts and feelings in me. And when I speak to you, the predominant feeling that I get is of calm and peace. There is something about you having gone through the experiences that you've gone through, having come from a different country in a specific type of family, then landing in a different type of a culture, learning to navigate life by living it as opposed to just reading a book or hearing about it. It has brought a certain level of intelligence and calmness in you that honestly is only apparent to me having talked to you for a little bit. So it's an honor and a pleasure to get to know you and get to know your story and understand where you're coming from, because I think there is so much value in this, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether an immigrant, learning to live the duality of life and still making the best out of it. I think you're a physical embodiment of that feeling. What are some last final thoughts that you have that you want to share with the audience to help them on their journey?
Oh man, I think what I would like to say is if you know you're in a bad situation within yourself, you need to start immediately. Not necessarily saying, okay, go crazy, as in just start something, attack it. No, just take a step back if you're going through something bad. And I would like, that's one thing I'm very passionate about. There are a lot of people that are going through things that they either can't talk about or they don't know how to approach it. Take a step back, take that mental break, write it down, and make it a goal that, okay, this thing, I don't like it. This is my main goal for the rest of the year. I think that's one thing I want to leave with them. Because if you just keep postponing it, you're going to be stuck. You're never going to get out of it. So.
Thank you so much for being on the show. It was an honor and a pleasure having you and chatting with you, and I can't wait for us to talk again.
I know. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Take care.